Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. It's Patriots Week. We're going to go ahead and break down what the Broncos are going to try to do on the offensive side, the defensive side of the ball, as they try to get their second win of the season. Ben, let's start with the offense. It's going to be Brett Rippon. I know that Drew Lock is getting some practice in this week, but it just certainly seems like prudent way to approach this would be to have Drew Lock be available maybe for Miami or beyond. So Brett Rippon being the guy, what did we learn in the win against the Jets, the way he played after going back over and watching that? What did you learn specifically as it relates to what we can expect in this game?
Well, we learned that this is a team that can't recover from being behind the chains, but if you can keep the offense on schedule, then you have a legitimate shot at winning games. You go back and you look at Driscoll versus the Bucs and getting behind the chains on those sacks, holding the ball too long, not getting the ball out, versus Brett Rippon, who's getting it out lightning quick. The difference is night and day. And if you're the Denver Broncos, a team that has thin margins as is, you can't afford to be behind the chains. And so I think for me personally, if I'm the Denver Broncos and I'm going to this thing, we're probably putting Drew Lock on the shelf for this week, and we're going to start Brett Rippon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work some packages up to take advantage of the mobility of Jeff Driscoll and Blake Bortles, especially down there near the goal line where the throwing windows are compressed a little bit. So, we might work in some run, some RPO, some run stuff, especially with Lindsey back now. Now you got Lindsey and you got Gordon and you got Driscoll out there who was a 4-5 athlete at the combine. Maybe we're running some kind of triple option play, a couple of trick plays we're kind of working on. That's the way I would approach this game. Throw something new at the Patriots because they're so good at taking what's on tape already and applying defenses to it that I want to make them think about things right from the outset.
One of the big storylines, of course, is the Patriots will be without Stephon Gilmore in this game, the former defensive MVP. What does that do for the Broncos, at least the way they want to attack?
Well, I think that gives you an advantage in the pass game. If Gilmore's out there, you don't even throw to his side. And it really would be interesting to see who he would be matched up on because Bill Belichick likes to put Gilmore on the guy that he most wants to take away. If Cortland Sutton were out there, it would definitely be Sutton. It would have been interesting to see who he matched up on. Would that have been Tim Patrick and his number 3 in the NFL percentage in deep ball? Would it have been Jerry Jeudy and his athleticism? It would have been interesting to see which guy would have gotten locked up by Gilmore. As it is, I think it's going to be an easier task for whichever Broncos receiver is getting that third corner.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this on the radio show. You're not as impressed with their secondary as I am. And maybe it's because of the name recognition. Now, when we were having that conversation, Stephon Gilmore was part of that. Now he's no longer. The McCourty twins are still back there, and there is some talent there. But you seem to think that that's a way you can attack the Patriots. You're a little more concerned about their front seven.
I am. Chase Winovich is the one that we need to circle, star, and keep an eye on. That pass rush from him is lethal. They've got some other guys that can do a little bit of damage. Winovich is their best player up there and the most productive. As far as the secondary goes, though, the New England Patriots are the 6th worst team in the NFL in terms of giving up passing yardage thus far this year. And that's with Gilmore in there. You take him out of that equation. This is a defense that's get up 9 touchdowns, has 4 interceptions, and 6th worst in terms of net yards per play allowed. That's bad. They play a similar style defense to what the Broncos play. They're a quarters match team, although they will play more man and they will blitz a lot more than Vic Fangio does. But at their core, they do some similar concepts. So Brett Rippon should have seen some of that and should be able to kind of navigate a little bit of that at least in that game. I'm not sold. The next 2 games the Broncos have, you get the 6th worst defense in the Patriots on a per-play basis. You get the worst defense on a per-play basis a game after that in Miami. I think those are exploitable games. I think this team, if they can find a way, don't look too far ahead, but if they can find a way to win this game against a shorthanded New England football team, all of a sudden you're a Miami win away from being 500. And man, we were already laughing at the people who said fire Vic Fangio. Maybe we can put them in a coffin and bury them.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that about the Patriots defense because I think on the surface you sort of expect the Patriots defense just to be really, really good. And then you look at some of their numbers and you say, wow, they're top 10 in a lot of categories. But there are some underlying problems with this defense. And it's not just what we saw against the Chiefs. They are 24th in the league in yards per play, and that's a metric that you usually look at, you specifically like to look at when it comes to telling the story about that defense.
Yeah, yards per play and yards per play allowed and differentials between 2 teams is one of the first metrics that sharp bettors look at if they're wagering on things. And I will tell you, it is a very, very valuable number that most fans casually overlook in terms of raw yardage numbers and things like that. The Patriots are not the defense they used to be. Bill Belichick is doing good things with all the people he has opted out. He's doing a great job coaching, don't get me wrong. And it's not something you should underestimate. But they are not the same defense that you're used to seeing. They are exploitable. And I think as long as you can play safe with the football and not turn it over, you can beat a shorthanded Patriots team.
And you definitely think that even traveling out to Foxborough without the crowds out there, that it's not going to be the same formidable event that usually it is for Broncos traveling to the East Coast. It's also an afternoon game, at least afternoon for us here in Denver, but it's going to be even later out there with a 2-hour delay. So I guess when it comes back to how the Broncos offense is going to attack, you've been talking about all week how you'd like to see a little bit of those two running backs on the field at the same time, get Philip Lindsay out there, because it's not really a look that Bill Belichick's probably seen very much of.
Right, and that's what I want to show. If it's me, and we're attacking the New England Patriots, we're coming out with looks they've never seen on tape before. We want them adjusting from the outset. We don't want them to ever be able to sit back and rely on their game plan. And Pat Shurmur's offense has been out there for a while. So the game plan and the book on Pat Shurmur's already been written. So you want to get out there and you want to have them guessing on their heels from the get-go. Go out there and throw a surprise at them like the Miami Dolphins did back there when Ronnie Brown ran the Wildcat, and the Patriots had no answer for it because they were on their heels all game. And so if you could find something to do, I'm not saying go out there and run the Wildcat, but I'm saying just do a couple little things to put them on their heels right there at the beginning and get them in their own head and adjusting right off the bat. That means they can't go with any of the stuff that they practiced all week. All those practices get thrown out the window, whatever practices they got get thrown out the window, and you've got a team that's woefully unprepared to handle a quarterback. That's putting your players in the best advantage. That's putting your players in the best spot to win, and that's what coaching is about.
We talked about what's replicable. Tim Patrick performance against the Jets. That feels like a little bit of a jumping off point.
I think so, too, especially with Gilmore out. Not to say those other corners aren't good. They're 3 or 4 deep with good corners. Gilmore's a special talent, though. He's like Dion. You don't throw to that half of the field if he's out there. And so I think having him out there suddenly opens up the entire field for the Denver Broncos. And I think Tim Patrick can become that safety blanket you want him to be in this game because of it.
It was certainly an impressive performance.